How's it? So behind me I've got a Frangipani. It's large and I'm going to need to start trimming this bugger soon. We're in the middle of winter. Theoretically you should only cut this towards the end of winter and beginning of spring, but it's been fairly warm in my region lately. I think I'm just going to take that chance. Besides that, it's huge, so whatever it's suffered in its lifetime before this is far worse than what I'm going to do to it now. You just always have to worry when trimming any plant. You don't want to induce any sort of infections and that kind of thing, and you also don't want to cut it incorrectly. I'll show you a few things now as well and what to do when trimming just about any plant. Similar processes apply, but on this I need to make it a little bit more bushy but shorter. Let me show you what's currently happening. So you can see here, let me just go a bit further back. The bottom of the tree itself is pretty much without any shoots that are going to cause leaves. They sort of start at the midpoint mark, so leaves start about there, or flowers, and that's quite cool because it gives us a bit of a canopy and we can walk under, because there's a tap at this portion of the house. If you look above it, that makes one gigantic canopy. This is around about 4 meters high, possibly higher. It makes a gigantic canopy, and it's really, really beautiful. But what I want to do is try and bring the canopy line down, so that sort of the tips of it are just above, maybe halfway between where they were and where they are now. Now I must tell you, this was hard pruned back. You can almost tell by the shape of the tree where it was hard pruned. That is 1.5 meters to 2 meters worth of growth. That is all flowers in a year on this plant. So it is healthy where it is, but lower down there's a lot of hardwood sections. So let me show you over here. There was just a standard, well, this basically I cut out. So that looks like a completely solid wood stump, and yet still it found a way, because of where it was last cut obviously, to grow out another shoot, and I had some flowers there anyway. But I keep hitting my head on the thing, so I'm going to pull that out. Well, it's gone, and I've cut it close to the tree, or to the rest of the branch, for two reasons. One is that getting it, if you cut it too like into the tree, you may, sort of there, you may induce sickness. And if you cut it where I've cut it now, it will grow mostly closed. It'll start to sort of make this callus that grows around it, and it will close up, kind of like these, although those were poorly done before my time. So there's a lot of damage on this tree. Don't mark me on the damage. But then there's also like this kind of rot, but you can tell the tree itself, it's handled with no problem. There's nothing going into the tree from that. So what any one of you would need to decide is what you want the thing to look like, any tree, and I basically just want to bring that line down to maybe there maximum, and have it fairly bushy but with some flowers lower down. And that's going to be a bit of a trick because of the way the branches sit. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that right, but if you can tell, there's a branch here that goes up, and it's just solid hardwood because the way it's been trimmed over the years, it's completely messed up. That entire branch I'm going to remove, and on this side here there are two branches. You can see there where I've made a cut already. There are two branches that are pretty much growing into one another, to the extent that when I cut this one out, so this one here, I want to end its cycle here, so I've cut it as close as what I feel is right for it to just get this kind of a callus again. And I heard this cracking noise, and what had happened was, in here, this branch was starting to grow into that branch, and when I separated it from here, the weight obviously just pulled them apart again, so that will not continue to grow that way. So I need to make a decision on which one of these two branches I'm going to pull out, either this one entirely or that one entirely, because you don't really want these things, unless it's your intention, you don't really want them intertwining, because you're going to cause weight that is unnatural on those branches, and they'll snap off, and you'll have a terrible effect after that. Now, in the back here, you would think that something like this would need to come out, but look there, I've got shoots all over the place. So this is actually maybe my low point marker that I must consider. Anyway, just to give you an idea on how you would normally cut these, if for example, like here I've cut it there, that's now not going to shoot anymore. It might if it feels that nature is stronger than me, which it probably is, but if you wanted this branch to shoot, and let's pretend this other one wasn't behind it, if you wanted this to shoot, you wouldn't have cut it here, you would have cut it sort of 6 inches, or just a distance, any distance that's not directly against this or too close. So give it a bit of space. I normally sort of just work on like about a third ratio of where the rest of the, or up to where the next split is going to be. So you would cut it here, and you will get more shoots, these kind of what I call water spouts. I think that is actually a term for it. And then that what causes that sort of bushy effect. So when you want the bushy effect, you cut in that sort of, let's call it midway point. And if you want less of a bushy effect, then you're going to be cutting it against the trunk or the branch or wherever that offshoot is. You're going to cut it relatively close to the main branch. And yeah, give you an example. So this tree back here, this is what you'd call a very poorly cut tree, and this was again done by the previous owners. You can tell the tree looks pretty natural up until there, and as those branches were cut out, you can see what they've grown. Let me show you a different part here. That's called a water spout. So because they were chopped not against the actual trunk or in the correct place, I'll maybe do a video on proper pruning later on, but because they were cut kind of just with an end, they've now formed their own bush. And you know, cool if that's what you want to do, but it's completely unnatural. If you looked at this tree when it gets its leaves again, you might not even be able to identify the thing. It won't look like what it's supposed to look like naturally. I think in fact my neighbor's got one. That's what it looks like naturally, and this is what it's been molested into. There are ways to fix it, but the ways to fix these kinds of things are just to let it grow for years and years and years, and then later on start doing the corrections. Yeah, so we are going to tackle this monster Frangipani, whatever you want to call it, and yeah, let's hope I can get it neat. And it's really beautiful, so I don't want to destroy it. Let's see what happens. I've just trimmed a little bit of this off. This is what we're sitting with at the moment, just some low-lying ones. You sort of trim a bit, take a step back, have a look at what you're doing again, and then just see what you're after. And if I look at mine from the side, you can actually see that that branch goes right out over my lawn. And if I stand under it, that's like 3.5 meters into the lawn area. So that originally I thought this was about 4 meters high. I haven't measured it, but I think it might be more like 5 meters high. It's very, very tall. So I'm going to do a bit of a dangerous trim here and get back a lot more of it. So I just want to show you what looked like a healthy tree. As I'm taking off some of the big branches, you can look at the top. There's rot in them right the way through, and I mean you can tell that goes deep. That is a good amount of rot, so it's good to keep the trees pruned. There's another case of one branch growing inside of the other. Now I've cut it off, it's just hanging from the other branches. This is our mess for today so far. we've pulled out a lot. I don't even know if you can see all the piles. He's busy now down there, and he and I both worked up here, and we've started trimming this, and we have yet to do the front. This is now the next day, and I have now finished. I've taken off easily 50% of the tree, but I've also cut it into the shape that I want, and I've left, you know, giving the example here of these branches. This is basically where I cut them a year and a half ago. So in a year and a half they've grown 2 meters with lots of shoots. So I'm going to do the same thing. and it's probably going to end up having more shoots coming out lower now as well, which is what I want. But it will also again get shoots that go right up to sort of almost roof height anyway. So over the next couple of years I'll try and get it even shorter and shorter, but that's what it looks like for now. And just one more reason as to why I took off so much is because I did find quite a lot of rot in those branches. So some of them I started cutting back, and then I cut back even further just to get rid of the rot. And you can pick up the rot because it looks, yeah, it's very easy to find. An example here, that's what it looks like. And this goes all the way down the stem, and you must cut it where you see that that black stuff has disappeared. So okay, this is just one branch where it just happened to be there. It could have been, you can tell there's discoloration here, and it's like a softness. You probably find that it was fine here, but I just decided to remove the whole head just in case. And so while that looks a little bit scary, I think the idea is that you shouldn't be too afraid of cutting plants. Just remember the basics, and you know, if you see things like rot, then you can be a bit braver. You've got to get rid of the rot. It's something that you have to do, so then you can get a little bit more brave. But in a nutshell, I just want to say, if you leave where there's multiple shoots that were there, or multiple branches, if you leave them up there, then you'll get even more multiples of those flowers. So if you cut it, let's say there, you would have a handful of shoots very low to the ground. So now I've left multiple of sections of the rest of the trunk that have split, and those splits will give me even more multiples of leaves and flowers. So I've left lots of shoots to help me get that look back, and I've left a gap in the middle because I want that sort of look. And yeah, I just want to show you, we've been quite busy in this garden, and this is already after having carted away a few loads of junk. Before I end the video, I just want to show you guys a couple of mistakes that I made, and this is whilst I still know better. What you're supposed to do when cutting longer branches, sorry, I just want to get this camera in a better place, is you should cut first a little section underneath, so upside down like this, and try and always cut sort of, I like to try and cut parallel with the ground. I'm lying to you, perpendicular with the ground, so like downwards, because I don't like seeing the flat face of the branch facing upward. I've just got it in my head that might be worse for inducing disease and so on. So with a longer branch, you cut a little piece just underneath, and then when you do your main cut above it, if it tears underneath, it breaks to where the tear is, and then it pulls off. So this one actually had a cut here, and then it didn't tear going downwards, it teared to the side. So all that you do in these circumstances is just trim it basically at this point again here, and just get that nice and tidy afterwards. So I've got a couple of those, I'm just going to get rid of them, and yeah, so try and avoid that just for a neatness sake, and also that these little parts where it's torn through the bark like this, that can also induce some diseases and illnesses and other things. So you just want to try and keep the tree as healthy as possible, so do it right. I'll give you a close-up on this base. This is a Frangipani that my kids can actually climb on, and I can climb on it as well. Although I do not recommend that you climb on most Frangipanis. They are not strong, they will snap and break, but I weigh just on 80 kilograms, and I can climb the majority of the tree. So that's what I'm going to climb to next, and chop out my mistake there too. This is just a final look at the end result. So thanks again for watching. That was me trimming my Frangipani. Please like and subscribe if you guys found this useful. Comment down below if you want to see anything else in particular. And yeah, please be careful when trimming any trees, shrubs, trees. You know, if you're trimming something like a rose bush, it's done differently to what you would a big tree like what's in the background there. That was done incorrectly again by the previous owners. I don't know if you guys can see that very nicely. And I can't seem to zoom in at this point, but you can see that was sort of chopped off right about there at some point. I think that they actually cut it with the intention to cut the entire tree down, but then they just left it, and there's more of those water sprouts that I was talking about. So now I've got a bush, and that's like, it exceeds 20 meters. It's very, very tall. and that thing's getting top heavy by the month, so I'm gonna need to wash that next. But don't just trim anything because you think that it's getting too bushy or too tall or anything. Rather go and look for the correct way to do it and then do it properly. So hopefully I can teach you a few things. I'm not a professional, but I have learned a few things by trial and error, and obviously it's not just without some knowledge. But yeah, hope to see you guys again soon. Cheers.